All right, the subject is the Internet of Things. How many of you could give me a definition of what the Internet of Things is? We got one out of four. That's not bad for this. I will tell you that the Internet of Things, a simple notion is it's going to be every place we are, different kind of internet connectivity and different internet things. So it's going to be every place, but in fact I found a place just this last Monday where the Internet of Things was not at, if that's proper grammar. Right there's no Internet of Things. This was up in Wild River State Park. There was no Internet of Things or Internet of anything, so I found a place, the one place where there is no Internet of Things. But I will tell you, if it's time to go out and buy your next Ferrari, the one thing you will notice is that the dashboard on this particular model has the screen from an Apple iPhone as its display screen. And so if you're thinking about a Ferrari or your next Ford, Chevy, Toyota, or Volkswagen, you have to keep this in mind, because all the car companies are going to design their cars around a cell phone. Now, I don't think it'll come down to the fact that you have to say, I want my Ferrari to be the iPhone model versus the Android model of a Ferrari. I think they will both work. But what's happened is that, and this is right now, I mean, this is new cars are starting to come out with these devices. And the reason is it makes no sense at all for a car company to sell you a brand new car that's going to last you 10 or 20 years, and inside is a computer that's going to be out of date in 3 or 4 years. So they're now relying on the cell phone companies, the smartphone companies, to provide the computing power, and they will take whatever comes from your iPhone this year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now and display it and let you function with that device. So they're externalizing the computer in the car, since it's, you know, a much more powerful and upgradable device. First questions that we have to ask is, what is the Internet of Things? And I'll talk about some examples and the issues. The definition. Today, our internet use involves people storing and retrieving information, data, images, etc. It's all people-based. Somebody put the video on, you watch it. Somebody put a PowerPoint on, you watch it. Somebody made a web page, you download it, you view it, or email and everything. The Internet of Things involves millions of things, gadgets, communicating over the internet with people and with each other. Now, I should correct that. That's billions of things. If each one of us, and there's say 1 billion internet users today, and each one of us has 5 or 10 gadgets that are connected to the internet, then all of a sudden that's 5 or 10 billion things. So it's going to add up real fast, and I know you have no idea what those things are, but I'm going to try and give you just the tiniest glimpse of what everybody's working on. Things like medical devices, thermostats, automobiles, refrigerators, etc., etc., etc. What are some of these things that are going to be connected? Well, our computers already are, our cars, lots of things in our home, our health providing systems, our health maintenance systems, retail applications, and our pets and our family. Now, if that doesn't take care of almost everything you can think of. So imagine this. Here's some cases. Did I get this? Your dog or cat runs away. You're on vacation and a water pipe leaks. A guest arrives at your house. And you're not at home, and they came there 2 hours earlier, and they're sitting out in the driveway wondering what to do because they can't get in the house. Or a child or a parent or a pet wanders away. All of these are things that are being addressed and can be done today with things that are connected to the internet. This isn't the future. This is today available. So I did a survey. I have a newsletter, and if anybody wants the newsletter that's not on it, there's a sign-up sheet here. It's just a monthly free newsletter talking about all of this stuff. So feel free to put your email address down and you can get that. A month ago, I asked the question, what are the things that you'd like to have online in this Internet of Things era? And so here was the responses. by the percentage of people who responded and who wanted each one of these things online. So here's what people said. Most of the people, almost 80%, wanted their thermostat online. And I wrote a little piece in my last newsletter about why that seems like a really silly idea, but we'll ignore that for time. Door locks, I can't read it, even television set, your lights in your home. And what this means is if you are away from the home, you can control any of these things over your iPhone. That's the whole idea, is these devices can be connected to the internet in a way you can access them when you're away from home. You could unlock that door for that friend who just drove up and see where your pet was or your child was who had wandered away from the house because they have a tag. You could buy these tags today, put it on your dog, and you'll know where the dog is. And they're not expensive because that thing's connected to the internet. Going clear on down, just a minute. The sensors, sensors to detect water in the basement. If I'm on a vacation and I know I have some water problems once in a while, wouldn't it be nice, rather than walking home and finding out I'm knee deep in water, wouldn't it be nice to get a text message the minute the water level started to increase in the basement, or that the temperature started to drop in the winter when I'm sitting in Florida, which I don't do, but if I was in Florida, I'd like to know when the heat went out in my house in the winter in Minnesota, for sure. So these were just samples, and I just put the ideas out to get people to think, and I just listed this, and this was the response. So it was interesting that the number of people who responded to this survey was a lot less than the number of people who responded to my survey about the future of Downton Abbey. Does everybody know Downton Abbey?
And you're surprised?
I was disappointed at first, and then I realized we got a long way to go here. But huge number of people wanted to tell me what they thought was going to happen to Branson. That was the subject. What's up with Branson? And 150 people responded. A whole lot of them said they didn't watch the program, but they wanted to tell me that too. Here are some of the issues that we're going to face. The big one is connectivity. This has been the biggest issue in technology since I started studying when I was in graduate school. I started studying technology, and the biggest issue was, how do we connect all these different systems together? That's just driven people crazy. And I worked in healthcare for 30 years with all the information technology in healthcare, and that was always number one on the list of problems, connecting the devices. Number two on the list was always education and training. It was always badly done, it was underfunded, it was misdirected. Terrible problems with training on new devices and things. Security and privacy is mammoth, because these people who are putting little things on your dog's chain or your grandmother's necklace or whatever to track her aren't thinking about somebody breaking into the system, but people are breaking into the systems, and I'll show you some examples. The third big issue is confusion. Remember how confusing it's been with a simple bunch of Windows PCs, trying to figure out the networks, figure out the new version of the operating system, or new Office version, or this or that. So now, what if you have 1,000 different kind of things, not just computers, that you have to figure out? So it's going to be horrendously confusing. I'm going to give you 3 examples that happened in the last 10 days. These aren't, far out things. One was Jeeps. They figured out a way, a hacker, that he could drive down the road, and if there was a certain type of Jeep driving along, to take control of that car from his cell phone in his car. They demonstrated it. They were doing it with friends and pick on somebody. No, the question was, is this the one that was remotely driven? And the answer is no. This is one that just happens to have an infotainment system that's online and connected to the outside. That's its only link. It wasn't remotely controlled. Well, the question was, how did they commandeer it if it's the infotainment system that they're tapping into? Well, if you're smart enough, like these hackers all over the world, you could figure out, and they did, a way to jump from the electronics of the infotainment system into the electronics that control steering and transmission and all the other control systems, and they figured out a link to get from one to the other. That was the huge leap. So once they got in there, then they could control those things. They could disable the brakes, and they demonstrated those things because they're now running the car, not just the infotainment system. Here's another one. These are all auto related. The second one was that General Motors cars, I'm not sure, Chevy or Buick or whatever it was, were taken over, same way, through the OnStar system, because that OnStar system is communicating over the internet through the phone system, actually through the phone towers. That's how it communicates, and they got in the way of, in the middle of that system and took over with that totally different system than what Jeeps. And then the third one is just incredible. Tractor semis today, for big companies, new devices, they're all monitored and managed remotely, and they've got something called, they called it a dongle in this one thing that just tacked onto the motor, and it takes all the information about how that vehicle is running, everything from performance internally to speed to hours it's been running to location, mapping its location. Everything about that vehicle is being transmitted continuously up to the internet so the company can monitor it. And so they got in through that system, and then from that system they kind of reverse engineered it so they could take over the tractor trailer. All of those came out in the last 10 days. But on the good news side, medical, which again was my field for many years, medical is going to be a big user of all of this material. And here was one from a newsletter that something about an ant-sized radio. Now, what would you do with an ant-sized radio? Well, the smaller you can get these things, the less power they take, and the more you could conceal an ant-sized radio in your pocket, in your bloodstream, in all kinds of places to collect and transmit information. I mentioned the business of hubs as the connecting devices as being a big issue. Who's going to be in the middle? If you have a bunch of this stuff, that ant-sized radio is not connecting to the internet. It's going to connect to a hub. If your television's online, it's not connecting to the internet, it's going through a hub. Every device is going to be concentrated through a hub, and the question is, whose hub? Is it going to be Google's or Apple's or HP's or Samsung's, or they're all making hubs, so that's where part of the confusion is going to come in. In the case of an ant-sized radio in your body, they will connect through what's called the Medical Body Area Network, an M-band. The idea that if my pacemaker, I don't have a pacemaker, but if I did, it could be connected to some other device on my body, and this little radio keeping track of something in my body, and they'd all be collected through this network I carry around with me somehow, and that thing's transmitted onto the Mayo Clinic or to my doctor or whatever.
Medical body what?
Medical Body Area Network, M-band. I went over to the Apple store about 6 months ago, and I saw this shelf full of stuff that didn't look like it belonged at all. It wasn't Apple products. There were things from Google. There were bits and pieces of everything stuck right in the middle of these beautiful Apple displays. That was 6 months ago. And I told the guy at that time at the store, I said, I'll bet if I come back here in a year, that shelf will fill the entire wall. These were devices that you can connect that some other company makes, like thermostats and things that you can connect onto the internet and access. Well, I went back about a month or two after that, and here was what that shelf looked like. It had already tripled in size. Apple now is making a move that requires anybody who wants to sell stuff like this through an Apple store that connects to Apple devices and being an Apple partner has to put everything in a white box that looks like an Apple product. So that shelf will be there, but it's all going to be filled with white boxes and in a year it'll fill that wall. This was only 6 months. I went to Best Buy. They have a whole shelf, you have to look for it, it's back in the corner, called Home Connectivity. The connected home, and they have sections on their website, about your smoke or your thermostats and integrated ecosystems, and automation and security. These are sections of the Best Buy website today. Let's take a look at some of these. In the home, we could have numerous sensors and controllers. They'll all be Wi-Fi connected. The devices are made by hundreds of companies. Used to be Honeywell was the thermostat company and Johnson Controls was a thermostat company, but now Apple has a thermostat product called ecobee, the ecobee 3. I went to Lowe's store the other day looking for some window kind of thing, and when I was there I saw this whole shelf of things, and I looked over and it was a display of all the things that they had for the connected home, including, and it's all made by a company called Iris. Everybody heard of Iris? No, I hadn't either. They make a whole range of connected things, from water sensors for your basement to thermostats to 15 different things that you can put in the home, and then they sell you the hub and you'll connect through the Iris hub to the internet. And then I just picked up their catalog because I didn't get a picture of the shelf, but that was prominently displayed at the front of the Lowe's store. Clear down the middle we see Google. They bought the Nest thermostat company, and the obvious question, what in the world does Google, the search engine company, want with a thermostat? And they started selling it 2 years ago. Seemed like a wacky idea. But the one thing that I'll hold this thought for a minute, but they got into a whole different business. Apple just announced, 6 months ago, they announced their HomeKit architecture, a way of connecting things in the home through Apple devices to the internet. If Apple has the hub in the home, it will be the Apple TV. That's what everything's going to be built around that. New Apple TVs could come out next month, and the idea of that is to let the different sensors in your house, thermostat or whatever, send information through the Apple TV so you can access it online. Samsung sells refrigerators, washers, and dryers, and they are going to put all of those things online. A big one, of course, is health and fitness. Personal fitness tracking, we see about all these Fitbits and everything else, so that's another aspect of health. Clear down the bottom of that screen. My question is, who will be the Microsoft or Epic in the remote healthcare business? Because those are two big businesses, and Epic's a big business, and now we're trying to track health. Who's going to take the place of a company like Microsoft there? And if you go to any store, you see things like the wonderful world of wearables and how many millions of these things are sold and tried and thrown away. So again, it's kind of confusing right now. But here's a question. Would you want your refrigerator online? Show of hands.
I don't think so, but tell me why I would. That's what I was wondering.
Well, here was my answer to that question. Me neither. But guess who makes refrigerators?
Samsung does.
One big company is Samsung, and their motto on their website is "Connect with us." And to go even further, nowadays people buy their items one at a time, but in the future people want to have an ecosystem, said Book King-yoon, Samsung's chief executive. Samsung is developing Smart Home, a platform that it hopes will underpin the connected home of the future, allowing all consumers to take calls on the fridge or to use a smartphone to turn on the air conditioning or switch off the lights at home or while traveling away in Europe, overseas. So I had two comments about that. One is, did you notice it says take calls on his fridge? Did that sound a little, why would they say on his refrigerator? My response, and I'm not like to be sexist about this, is that no woman I know would want to show off making phone calls on her refrigerator, but every guy I know would want to say, when he's getting a beer, look at this, I can make a phone call. You want me to call you on the phone? They would think it was cute and funny and everything. Have you heard of the Amazon Echo? Buy it now for $150. Sit it in the middle of the kitchen table or any place else and talk to it like you talk to Siri or Google or anything else. Tell it to play music, tell it to look up something. And the version they have now doesn't make phone calls, but I'll bet the next one will. So it's a central communication tool that you can buy today called the Amazon Echo.
The thing about Windows 10 Cortana now, we just had a presentation on PC sitting there, and you can from far across the room say, Cortana, what's the weather like today?
Yeah.
Cortana, what's my traffic today? You know, what's my drive gonna be like? And I'll come up and tell you. It'll take you 30 minutes to get to work today.
Well, Amazon has some girl's name as the key word, and so you have to either rename one of your kids or say hello Amazon, I think. So maybe not your refrigerator. How about connecting your thermostat? And guess who makes thermostats? Well, this was the one we went to, was Google. And my comment on this is the reason Google bought this thermostat company is because they're trying to get into this connected home. People have been talking about this for years. The first gadget that went online on the internet was a pop machine in 1988. Before any of us had heard the name internet, they were monitoring a pop machine at a college dorm to see if there was soda in it before they went down and bought it. So people have been thinking about this idea forever, and it's the miniaturization and things that are now taking place that makes it possible. But Google's also got a smart smoke detector. They're putting in security systems that are Google-based because they know everything about you when you're online. They know nothing about you when you're wandering around your house unless they can get a thermostat that knows when you come and go in the morning, so it turns down the temperature, when you go to bed at night, so it changes the temperature. And these tracking security systems give Google a huge amount of information. That's all they care about is learning about people.
Yeah.
Anybody been to a baseball game in the last 2 years? Okay, you're going to walk by a beacon that was put in place last year and scattered all over Target Field, and these track where you are. If you have a certain app that you can download and you turn it on, then this system of beacons that's scattered throughout Target Field will know your location and be able to send you a notice, hey, there's hot dogs on sale right around the corner, because it knows where you are.
Why doesn't anybody connect to that? What's you don't have to go stand in line and find out they sold out of hot dogs.
Well, it's the same reason as why everybody would want to get all the coupons they can when they go to Target. And so if you walk to Target and this thing says they know what kind of toothpaste you like, and they tell you it's on sale right on the next aisle. So some people want to do this. Some people cannot give the company too much information, cannot wait for more coupons. I am not one of those people. That's all it's about, is selling stuff.
Well, I know. I'm just wondering how they attract people.
Well, some people see this and will sign up right away, and some people won't. It's all.
They know what I like. I want to.
They are my friends as long as I have money, right? I'm going to skip this one and go on pretty quickly here. So this is kind of what they're looking for. All of these things, and you will see examples when you watch ads of window blinds going up and down, and you'll see all this. That's right. Retrofitting's not going to be easy for some of them, but it's all wireless, so it's pretty easy. But what I wonder about is this convenience thing. Now, everything's going to be so convenient. There was one example that showed a lady, somebody came to the door, she could see the picture on the screen and touched a button to open the door. She touched another button to put the blinds up and down and change the mood lighting in the room. So here's what we are creating. Whoops. Somebody like this. And remember, the other old side of this thing was selling fitness trackers. And we're trying to get you to walk 10,000 steps every day, but we're making it possible to run your old house and never get off the couch. So there is a little pull there. Let's see what else. Here's a question. How is all this going to work? Well, the answer is nobody has a clue. And just a second. Do you remember, anybody remember the 1980s? Do you remember? Okay. When computers first came into the office, I worked in Honeywell at that time, but that was about the time I left, but computers came into Honeywell, and we knew who was going to use the computers. We had everybody, there was no question, it was going to be the secretaries, because secretaries typed, computers were going to replace typewriters, therefore secretaries were going to use. No idea at all that every manager, every engineer, every salesman, everybody would use a computer. That thought never crossed anybody's mind, and we're in that stage right now with this Internet of Things. We don't know how it's all going to work. So, in that, what I'd like to do is end with a song. Your pacemaker's connected to your smartwatch connected to your smartphone's connected to your Wi-Fi, and your Wi-Fi is connected to your electronic medical record system and over 3,500 insurance companies. So, dem phones, dem iPhones. I made this up when I went to Minnesota Hospital Association. The final question, and what I was asked before this session started, was what does this stuff have to do with education or with training? Well, first of all, the subject matter. Somebody's going to have to teach these people how to use all of this stuff. Where can training be performed? Well, it can be performed wherever you're connected with these gadgets. What devices will be used? They haven't even been invented yet, most of them, but we're going to be using those to train, and it will be evaluated in different ways. So when you change the whole infrastructure of technology, you affect not only training, but practically everything else. Sign-up sheet for the newsletter if you want it, business cards if you want them. Thank you very much, and we'll work on that red laser.
Thank you very much, Gary. That was really fun.
Well, good.
Nice presentation.
I did mention that I put this on YouTube a lot of times if I can get a decent video, so I usually try it. I've had almost every one work out. What I do is I take the raw video and then I splice the slides in, so I don't try and capture that here because that's